everyone. Welcome to TOFA Talks on PHLV, where we feature inspiring stories of Filipinos around the world. For today's episode po, makakasama natin former immigration lawyer, business tycoon, philanthropist, one of America's leading female executives, and one of Asian community's most respected and admired civic leaders, Loida Nicolas Lewis. Magandang gabi sa inyo, ma'am.
Magandang gabi, Elton. Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome back to the program, Ma'am Loida. The last time you were here 3 years ago na po, we spoke briefly before the election about why Filipinos should vote for Joe Biden as president. You told us then that among other things, Biden has all the qualities we need in a president. We took a poll, and one of the voters' deciding factors was his major campaign promise of immigration reform. We all know that this is one of those polarizing subjects between the GOPs and Democrats, but this is also paramount to our community. The passage of immigration reform would benefit hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants. Last January 2021, President Biden sent immigration bill to Congress as part of his commitment to modernize our immigration system. And last night, during at his second State of the Union address, after discussing gun control among many other topics, the president touched very briefly on immigration. Let's also come together on immigration and make it a bipartisan issue like it was before, he said. Again, they've been talking about fixing this for decades. When are they really going to get it done? There have been 2 attempts, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ma'am Loida, at comprehensive immigration reform in modern history. One in 2007 and another one in 2013. But both instances failed. The legislation, I mean. May pag-asa pa po ba ang immigration reform under his administration, knowing that divided ang lower house, now ruled by Republicans, and Senate Democrats? What happened to that January 2021 bill that the president sent to Congress? Do we have an update po, ma'am? We always say that the United States is a country of immigrants, and yet why is this reform very difficult to achieve? Is there something he can do about this as president and not wait for a bipartisan legislation?
Well, sadly, we have the separation of powers. So the president cannot do without Congress agreeing with him. And the time to have done it was the first 2 years. And indeed, he passed so many bills, more than President Obama, because he understood
300 bills, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, they became law. You know, the infrastructure bill that President Obama couldn't pass was passed, and so many others. So now, immigration reform, sadly, is always a touch point. And when he had the majority of the Senate, not majority, but 50-50, 2 of the senators didn't go along with him. So although he had majority in the lower house, in the upper house, Senate, there was no real unity among the 50 senators. So it's that hope that it will pass. And sadly, with the lower house, the House of Representatives being now Republican control, there is no way, no chance. And the way for those who are dreamers will be to do what President Obama did, executive order. So right now we are in a limbo with the immigration reform. So that's very sad that President Obama's control of Congress, the Democratic control of Congress, has disappeared. So that for now, for all of us involved with this problem, we should see to it that we regained the democratic control of Congress.
Ma'am, forgive po my ignorance, but any chance of another executive order? Or this is entirely different from an
There is what Obama did for the Dreamers. They were going to be deported, and so he made an executive order that they cannot be deported and they should be given workman authorization. But that had a limited span.
2 years, 3 years.
They are limbo. They are, neither here nor there. But some of them have been able to fix their own, immigration status by the usual, by marrying, by becoming, well-known in their field, achieving PhD or professional integrity, but the other people do not have that. So unfortunately for our dreamers, they remain dreamers.
President Biden spoke about the country's progress and resilience. More importantly, he called for unity among GOPs and Democrats. He was applauded for a steady economy, low unemployment rate, securing jobs, etc. He even mentioned raising the wage for teachers, Equality Act for LGBT Americans, among many, many others. Ano po ang take nyo sa achievement report niya so far?
He has done so much more than any other president in the first 2 years. That includes President Obama, President Johnson, because President Johnson had 11 years. Had his 1 year after President Kennedy died, and then he was re-elected. He was elected for 4 years. So he had 5 years to pass all the laws that he was able to master. But President Biden only had 2 years, and yet he did all the things that he said at the Congress. He was able to do it in first 2 years. Why is that? Because he had experience with President Obama.
Right.
President was working very strongly for the Obamacare, for the ACA, Affordable Care Act. And so he was not able to pass the other bills. Now, with President Biden, knowing that he had really only 2 years, he got it all done. Why? Because he has been a senator since he was 29 years old. He was elected as the youngest senator of Delaware. And so all those years, he knew how Congress works. So as president, he is the most experienced, and he was
Victory Fund. Are you going to endorse him again, ma'am, for re-election next year?
Of course. You know, you can, with so many things in abeyance, meaning to say there is the possibility of war in the Pacific. There is also not possibility, but we have so many strains of our, COVID-19. I mean, it's that there was the Omicron, there was the Delta, so many strains. All of these are hanging over us, not to mention climate change. I mean, although hopefully, maybe we will not have any more snow because it's already February, and in 1 more month we will have spring. So all of these are hanging up. So you don't change captain on midstream. He is driving the train, and then you will change him, or he's driving an airplane and you will change him in another. No, he deserves another 4 years. And forget it that the people are saying he's 82 years old. He is alive and well and doing the work in the White House. So old age is not a bar.
Right. Ma'am, as far as expectations niyo po sa kanya, we know that he's done so much. During his within the first year of his term, first 2 years. Ano po ang gusto niyong mangyari during his term? What do you like to happen or to see before his term ends next year?
Well, I want this immigration reform to pass through, and we have the chance 1 year and 18 months more, meaning to say in 2024 there will be an election for presidency and the Senate and Congress. So in 2 more years, we need to change the lower house back to democratic control. And then you can see totally the change in government, because so many things are happening. First, we should legislate Roe versus Wade. Women have a right to their bodies. And yes, it is against the Catholic Church, but, a woman has the right to decide what is going to be her life. I do believe that. People will say it's a sin. That's between God and the woman. So that's one. Secondly, voting rights. There are so many states that have restricted people from voting by shortening the absentee. So many things have been happening in the states. So that's one. Gun control. How can we not pass a bill for gun control, like background checks, when around 10 years ago, how many children were killed
Mhm.
Okay, and now every month there is crazy person who is with a assault gun as if he's going to war and killing innocent people. So many things wrong in America. Therefore, we as voters should see to it that we have a Democrat as Senate, as congressman. And of course, we have 51 in the Senate. They should remain, if not add more. But the lower house, definitely. And we in New York, okay, we elected 4 Republicans in the state of New York. What a shame. So for us in New York, we have work to do.
Right. Thanks, Ma'am Loida, for sharing your thoughts. Truly, truly insightful, ma'am. And let's now move on to a much lighter topic po. You have a new book, Why Should Guys Have All the Fun? Very interesting title for a memoir. And this is an Asian American story of love, marriage, motherhood, and running a billion-dollar empire. A collection of personal experiences and momentous turn of events that took place in your life. How did you pick this title, ma'am? I'm curious because for 24 years, you were married with the late Reginald Lewis, American lawyer, graduated from Harvard and turned entrepreneur and one of the richest Black Americans. Not to compare with other interracial marriages, you were not just a pretty face. You were a success story yourself. So tell us about it, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Lewis wrote a book before he died. And he said, I want the title to be, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Because when he was 6 years old, his mother left his father and he was being with his grandparents. And they were talking about why the best jobs, the best houses and the best opportunities are only go to white people. So in his youth, he asked, why should white guys have all the fun? And that's the title of his book. And it became a bestseller when it came out in 1995. And through these years, I have been announcing it, going around the country. And many people have come to me, especially people of color, men, Black, and Latino, and even Filipino. They read the book and they changed their career. They read the book and they became an entrepreneur. They read the book and they started to dream big. And so that's what I have done in the past 25 years, since 1995 when it was published. But I was remembering how the publisher of Washington Post, Catherine Graham, took over Washington Post when her husband died. And so in the sense that I took over Mr. Lewis, TLC Beatrice, the $1 billion company, when 1 year after he died, I said, I should tell people my life story. And so instead of naming it Mrs. Lewis to CEO, I said, why not take it from Mr. Lewis' book? In that way, I have all of those readers who bought the book and still buying it now. It's a takeoff from his title. His title was, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? So my title is, Why Should Guys Have All the Fun?
Fantastic, Ma'am Loida. As I've mentioned, you were a success story yourself. In 1974, you became the first Asian woman to pass the state of New York's bar exam. In 94, you took over the company as chair and CEO. In 97, you were praised for your management of the company as you had successfully increased profits and cut debt substantially. Today, you're considered one of the most influential Democratic leaders in America. All this while raising 2 beautiful daughters. How did you manage po to break stereotypes? How did you make people listen to you and follow you when around this time, despite the progress of women in the US, I'm talking about before, men were still seen as the head of the household, who they brought in most of the income. Are you conscious about the fact that you are perhaps paving the way for gender equality, women empowerment?
I'm a little different. I took over the company from my husband. So in a sense, I inherited it. But what is really important, that's why I want them to read the book, is that I didn't just have all those achievements that you have done. I have had failures. And it's stated in my book. I did not, I went into real estate and went into bankruptcy. I tried after being so successful as a CEO, I tried to buy companies too and failed. So my book tells, all the highs and also the lows. So I am, I do want people to read it, men and women. And as you are saying, how did you manage it? Faith in God. I knew that God will not abandon me. I knew that He will remain, He is in us. And so if we keep that faith, we will not lose hope. And so for those people who will read the book, you will see that my belief in a loving God is like a running strain in my life. So ups and downs, light and darkness, sadness and joy. And all throughout, I knew God protects me. And God is my rock and my salvation.
Thank you, Ma'am Lloyd. Down to two questions na lang po. Personal question, and I hope you don't mind. Can you share with us your fondest memories of Mr. Lewis? How was he as a husband? I mean, you were an immigrant from the Philippines. You married a successful lawyer and businessman. Hindi po ba kayo na-intimidate or vice versa when he saw you having a great sense of leadership? How did you maintain balance of power in the family?
Well, when I was a law student in the University of the Philippines, I was so strong. I was so, intense and very dominant. So I told myself I will never marry because I don't want to wear the pants in my family. So when I met Mr. Lewis, I was intense. He was more intense. I was a type A. He was triple A. I was ambitious. He was more ambitious than I was. And so surrender si Loida. So for those women who are like me, who doesn't want to be the CEO of the family, why would I get married? I might as well be the CEO of my own life. So when I met a man like Mr. Lewis, surrender. So that's the first difference. I became more a woman because I found a man. Now, number two, your other question is, how did I manage to go? No. In any relationship, you decide who will be the CEO, because not always the woman can be a CEO, and not always the man. The woman can be a CEO. The woman can be the one leading the charge. So it's a relationship between the two of you, or some couples make it equal. You take the trash today, I take it tomorrow. I mean, you have a relationship and you have an understanding. So that's what I want to say. I am different. If I am going to lead the man, I'll not get married. I'll be my own CEO. So when I found somebody, so he became the head of the family. That's how I manage it. I became the role that would complement him. He is going to go up to the stars. I'm just holding on to him. And so take care of the house, take care of the children, take care of him. That's how you may have a successful marriage. The very basic element is love, that you love him and he loves you. If that is there, don't sweat the small stuff.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, Ma'am Loida. And now, not to spoil, can you cite one instance po where you overcame any type of challenges, obstacles in your path, whether as an immigration lawyer for INS, now called Department of Homeland Security, or the CEO of TLC Beatrice? Did you experience any form of discrimination as an immigrant, as a woman? Can you tell us how you handled it, ma'am?
Well, first, discrimination as a woman. When I applied for a position in the immigration, they denied me out of 12 positions. So I had to sue them for discrimination, and I won. Okay. Secondly, when I was married to Mr. Lewis and we were living in Paris, because he bought this billion-dollar company called Beatrice International Foods. And in one of our dinners, just the two of us, he told me that he had dinner with a beautiful, single, accomplished, Black woman. Oh my God, I was so jealous. So that was so difficult. How do you deal with that? Because in my mind, they were sleeping together. And that's when my own faith of what true love is, that love is patient. Am I patient? Love is kind. Am I kind? Love is not self-seeking. Am I self-seeking? Love does not keep a record of wrong. Do I keep a record of wrongs? Love never ends. Meaning to say unconditional love. And so Once I integrated that into my being, into my consciousness, then he can do no wrong. He slept with another woman, so what? He loves me and I love him. So
Oh,
those things are some of the things that I was able to hurdle.
my goodness. Thank you so much, Ma'am Loida, for sharing your time. May we invite them po, our PHLV viewers, to buy the book. I know it's available on March 28th, but we can pre-order now via Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other book outlets online.
Oh, that's so kind. Yes, please. Please buy it ahead of time, because we want to have at least, 2,000 books
Copy.
sold before March 28th. And that will determine how many copies they will print for hardcover. But
Well,
thank you so much, Elton John.
oh, you're very welcome, ma'am.
Of TOFA. Thank you for inviting me on
You're
this
welcome.
wonderful Q&A.
There you have it, friends. Miss Loida Nicolas Lewis, please get her book, Why Should Guys Have All the Fun? An inspiring and uplifting true story of how an ordinary person can rise to achieve extraordinary things. The memoir will be released on March 28, 2023, but you can pre-order a copy now on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Maraming salamat to my producer, Johan Saison. Thank you, Ma'am Loida. Cheers, everyone, and see you at the next episode of TOFA Talks.